Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit, and we're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another of the lessons that are assigned for morning and evening prayer, what is known as the daily office lectionary. And although yesterday we deviated and we instead talked about the Feast of Our Lady of Walsingham, today we're right back to our gospel lesson that's appointed for evening prayer during this time, and that is from St. Matthew's Gospel. Today we have a reading that begins in chapter 8, ends at the beginning, near the first couple verses of chapter 9. And we have for today two healing stories. One has to do with somebody who is sick of the palsy, and another who is actually possessed by a demon. The first part of the story is known as the healing of the Gerasene demoniac. This man who lives in this town, which is outside of the city, outside of the Jewish area, and we know that because pigs will play a big part in this story. Remember, pigs are considered unclean for the Jews, and you definitely would not have pigs anywhere in the proper boundaries of what is known as Israel because of their being unclean. But this man has a demon, and there's a couple of things to point out about that story which is worthy of you being able to listen for. One is the fact, of course, is that because there are pigs there, we can assume that this Gerasene demoniac is probably not a Jew. And so Jesus' healing mercy reaches out to somebody who is outside of the original covenant. Secondarily, we know that he has been tormented for a long time by this possession. And in fact, when Jesus steps into the scene, the demons know who Jesus is. The devil certainly knows who Jesus is. And so this is what we hear in the 8th chapter, beginning at verse 29. After he finds that this man has been possessed, he says, "And behold, they cried out," they being the demons, what have you to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God? Art thou come hither to torment us before the time? And there was a good way off from them a herd of many swine feeding. So the devils besought him, saying, "If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine." So we have here something very interesting, and that is we have that these demons know who Jesus is, and that they know that the time is coming when they are going to be cast out. So we do know that a precursor of the crucifixion, Jesus winning the victory over death, and then of course at the end of time, when Jesus will return in glorious majesty to judge the quick and the dead, the demons will have no more ability to trick or tempt or any of their demonic things. Interesting that they asked to be cast out into these swine, and of course if you read onto the story, you will hear that the swine, once they become possessed, actually end up go headlong over the cliff. The other interesting healing incident that's in today's lesson, at the beginning of chapter 9, is the healing of the man who is sick of the palsy. And part of the scandal of this particular story is that when the man is brought to Jesus in order for Jesus to heal him, Jesus' response is, "Your sins are forgiven." Now, not all sickness is the direct result of actual sin, right? The sins that we actually do. Just because you may get cancer doesn't mean that you've particularly done something sinful. If you've smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 41 years and you get lung cancer, that's probably the result of your actual sins. But we cannot automatically assume because somebody is sick, they have done something particularly sinful, because we are actually affected by original sin as well. And original sin says that our bodies are not perfect. Our bodies are distorted by that original fall, our distortion from our created goodness that occurred in the garden. Right? When Adam and Eve disobeyed God and ate the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they brought sin and death into the world, and the consequence of that is that our bodies are going to get sick and are going to die. The scandal of today's story is that Jesus forgives his sins. And of course, the people around him are like, "Whoa, who is this person? Only God can forgive sins." Well, they're 100% right, aren't they? And in fact, Jesus Christ is God. He is the Son of God. He's the second person of the Trinity. And so, of course, he can forgive sins. And he goes on to say, which is easier to say, right? Get up, take up your pallet and walk, or your sins are forgiven. And of course, he tells him to get up and walk. Being forgiven of your sins is infinitely better than being able to walk. I'm sure this man is glad to have both. So there's part of the scandal, folks. The part of the scandal is that Jesus has revealed himself as the Son of God, and they don't get it. They're not comprehending that. And of course, that extension of the forgiveness of sins Jesus has entrusted to the church through his apostles and through the apostles, through to the priests in the church, that we can give the assurance of the forgiveness of sins, as well as being able to be reconciled to God through Jesus Christ's saving mercy. So, brothers and sisters, there's two things for you to think about this morning, this Friday morning. The wonder of the forgiveness that Jesus offers in healing, both in driving out demons, as well as making those who are not well whole. I hope you have a glorious and blessed Friday.